The time to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our five senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale and beyond. The commentary and guests will shift the paradigm and defy the status quo. What will you believe? Welcome to Frequency Wars, the next revolution. And here's your host, challenging you to question everything, Tim Ray.
Wow, we are back with MKUltra survivor Elisa E. It's one of these very dark experiences in life that people go through, almost unimaginable. And and I guess for the human mind, there's a certain level of curiosity of you don't want to experience yourself, but when other people do experience, you kind of want to just try to put yourself in the shoes of what that could be like. And I think there's a sense of why people like to watch horror movies,
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's it's just for that fear, or if you want to know. But as you learn these different experiments and torture that these MKUltra, and this is basically trauma-based mind control that's been going on for decades now, to human beings, and the counts I think up in the millions. And half the people in power positions are MKUltra, if not homegrown, created later on in life. Today we're going to be talking about the entertainment industry, and who may be MKUltra in the entertainment industry. Allegedly Britney Spears. So Elisa, how you been since last time we spoke? Anything new and exciting in your life?
I'm doing well, actually. Thank you. Getting ready to make some kind of big life changes for myself, and so life's been very full this winter.
Well, wonderful. And I'm always more concerned about people who've gone through certain traumas, because to me, the indicator of where somebody is where their present state of mind is. And if their present state of mind is in a secure, parasympathetic mode for the most part, then you're going to create that type of experience, right? So where is your present state of mind right now?
Actually, a lot of gratitude right now, and moving into change. So there's a bit of a sense of adventure and possibility, potential.
Hopeful and exciting, huh? And it's scary,
yeah.
Scary and exciting at the same time. Change.
Yes, exactly.
I love it.
Exactly. I've lived a very in deprogramming. I've had to live a very alternative type lifestyle due to financial pressures and so forth. So it's been an adventure all along.
Right. No, and you say that's the whole thing. I think people don't realize. Not only you, but other folks who kind of start out the gate here with not 3 strikes against you. I mean, you're 10 feet underneath the ground just to get to the surface for some air. You have such a battle to go through, and then you still have to deal, after dealing with integrating 1,000 personalities. You still have to deal with putting food on your table, having a roof over your head, furthering whatever interest you have, once you get to that 0 point again, right? And I that's why I consider you a hero, is because where you are and what you're doing, you can't measure yourself, compare yourself to other people's success. You really have to measure your success by how far you have come in your own journey. And that's kind of hopefully you do that.
It's really true, and I constantly have to remind myself, without any envy or jealousy involved, because that's an easy place to go to. And I just have to constantly remind myself of where, like you said, where I've come, and I'm not the only one in this game that, there's a concerted effort for many like me with very particular programming I've seen, that are kept, in one example, very financially strapped constantly.
Right. Well, yeah. And that's part of the
Which makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you don't have the means, or if it's a constant struggle, it's to take that focus away, to make you feel hopeless and in despair. And I know some really amazing people who refuse to live in that state despite. So, yeah.
Listen, I tell people all the time, now's the time, this energy shift here, now's the time for good, light people who get what's going on, people who are really trying to make a difference for the better in the world, to be successful in this Luciferian kind of setup world where we are right now in. And that's really your, if you want to say, best revenge or your best success is
Right.
is to show in this three-dimensional monopoly game, show that success from their perspective, because that's when I truly believe you're showing the power. And when people let go of like money issues and let go of the restraints, the kind of prison mind planet type of thinking that holds us back from being successful, at the same time sharing our truth, I think at that point it really sends a message to other people like, wow, I could speak my truth. I don't have to sign a contract with the devil, and I could actually be successful in, let's say, society's eyes. But not that that's the most important. The most important course, as you would agree, is being successful from your own journey, right? So with that being said, why don't we talk about people who sign contracts with the devil, if that's even the right terminology for it? So I mean, you have an entertainment industry right now that is, I think, just out of control. I mean, you have my God, I mean, who are some of the people up here? We have. Let's start with Britney.
DMX right there.
DMX, right?
Let's see, Britney Spears.
Yeah, it's like a Britney Spears. Well, what's your take at you're seeing how the MK Ultra works, and what's your experience been, Elisa, with the entertainment industry, and how and why it's important to have people who can be mind controlled in those positions?
Well, they become almost ambassadors and icons in our society. And I mean, I go back to kind of where the modern version of, MK Ultra started, and you've probably heard the names like Candy Jones. She was a pinup model. She was a pinup girl, and she was one of the first that I know of very publicly. And then, of course, my opinion, and these are my opinions.
Yeah, of course. This is all allegedly, all right? All allegedly.
Yes.
Make your own mind
then
up.
Marilyn Monroe, she was one of the first presidential models.
Right.
And these women had access to, they traveled to different countries. They had access to some powerful people. And the concept of, using in the entertainment industry, it's to me more about the influence on young people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you're bringing this up today, because there seems to be this plethora of MK Ultra breakdown in the entertainment, music, and Hollywood industry, both male and female.
Right.
And yet I discovered something recently, literally within the last couple of days, and it's been around for a while, but I just kind of stumbled upon this concept in Hollywood and the music industry called alter egos. And this is a really, it's gaining a lot of momentum, that the stars themselves are talking about their own alter egos. Some of them name into the figures of 20 something. Some of them just name one or two alter egos. And this term, I did some research yesterday on it when I had some time. And what I'm seeing is that this breakdown and overabundance of Illuminati symbology and sigils and information, they're indoctrinating the people who are watching this and following this and become fans. Let's say, fans. They're not only indoctrinating, they're desensitizing people. And this newer version of alter ego, to me, what this looks like is making it actually very acceptable and even desirable. Because these are people that people are following, and they want to dress like them, they want to have their hair like them, they so on and so forth. And now they're bringing in the aspect of it's not just a breakdown, it's really cool to have an alter ego.
Yeah, to the point where I want to be tortured and created multiple personalities. I want to be like Kanye West. Did you see the Kanye West breakdown with on stage? Now, do you find? You of anybody should know the indicators or even the subtle indicators of somebody who might have been is trauma-based mind controlled. So you could use Kanye West if you want as an example of what did you see that made you think that he might have been mind controlled? trauma based?
Well, the confusion, the blank stares, the out of context conversation, is him and many others are doing this, and there's some fascinating examples that have been around for years. I did send you guys, by the way, the Shia LaBeouf video.
Oh, good.
Right when you were doing the intro.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
So to me, there's this, like in the Britney Spears, there can be the switch in voice and action. The whole energy of the person changes. The eyes often give a telltale sign, the pupil dilation in and out. But what I see most of the time is they look like they're actually kind of confused, or they're trancing out, and somebody's interacting with them still on a normal level, and then something out of context or comes out of their mouth, or nothing at all, and they're in kind of a stare state.
Right. Well, and I seen Beyonce on stage where her eyes, she's sitting with, I guess, is Beyonce and Kanye West together? Is that there were
Jay-Z?
Jay-Z, that's who it was. Yeah, Jay-Z. And how her eyes just start kind of like going down and like up, one up, and it's they have that, they talk about sometimes with MKUltra where that their eyes kind of are indicator of potentially of the trauma base.
Yes.
One eye is doing something different than the other eye, right?
Right. And it's hard to see with a lot of people. Sometimes it's very imperceptible, the actual change in alter, if it's not a drastic change.
Right.
But the eyes are very telling. And there can be a pupil dilation flash, and then it goes back to normal as well. And even we're going to get into some really more esoteric, and
sure.
Because I've experienced this in deep deprogramming with myself, and early deep deprogramming, where the eyes change. I mean, they can change color. I've had that happen in the past, go from blue to green.
Wow.
And pupil dilation to the point of almost complete black. So it gives this very, very dark, sinister feel. And when we've already talked about kind of the entity part of it, that is present. So it's going to shift the energy. I mean, if you're in the presence of people that are doing this, trust me, when someone's fully under programming and there's entities involvement, the entire energy, the hair on your arms will stand up.
Wow.
You'll feel it sometimes and not even be able to name what's going on. So in Hollywood, it's rampant. I mean, what's been caught on video on almost an insane level.
It's a tip of
and
the.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's a tip of the iceberg. What's probably caught on video, honestly, probably because you're not there behind the scenes with their handlers and what they do to continue with the trauma-based mind control as they kind of slip out. Like the first thing Kanye West was, allegedly under mind control, he was shipped off to a psych center. What was that? What's that story? What's the real story behind that?
He disappeared for a while, I think, from the public eye after that.
Yeah. What do you extrapolate? What could have happened when he was shipped off to this?
Reprogramming.
Right.
Reprogramming. Yeah. Get him straightened out. And I think what happens is they'll try to straighten him out, and then if it doesn't take, then you'll just kind of see that person fade out of high level public view.
Right. And so what do you have any idea of what techniques of this reprogramming could be if somebody kind of falls out of the typical?
Sure. I mean, I know I went through it as well. I don't have full memory of the various episodes, but basically reprogramming to me is they're going to go back in using the original methods to reinforce what was already placed in, and they can add enhancements or change the programming of certain alters if they feel that's necessary. But basically they're just it's like taking your car in for a tune-up.
I mean, I'm
laughing.
Really
what it is.
I'm laughing because they have it down to a science, don't they?
They do, and I mean, they're just going to re-traumatize and torture and whatever needs to happen to. I call it in the book. I don't know if I wrote this in the book, but it's like things can haunt your systems.
Yeah.
So there might be something that took place that's haunting the system of alters. And, it's like a computer program going in and taking the virus out, or reinforcing and rewriting the program so that it functions more appropriately.
It's
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's really what?
It's just really, it's really scientific, but there's that esoteric side of it as well.
Yeah, you can't measure that part of it, although you experience it for sure. It's just, to me, when I see like the Britney Spears shaving her head falling apart, or the Kanye West falling apart on stage, and then him shipped off, and hanging out with Trump the next few days later, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And I see. Beyonce, and I even see now. You go online, you can see some of these poor TV anchors, are falling apart, right?
Yeah.
And most people, like especially on the internet, most people get very angry at these celebrities for influencing, and understandably so, influencing, the younger generations who are not going through this mind control, but are being mind controlled through a very more subtle way. Like you said earlier, they want to be like them. So, multiple personalities, alter egos are cool. I want one too, right? That type of mentality.
Right.
But I can't help, honestly, Elisa, I want to know your take on it, but I really can't help but feel so bad for a Britney Spears who probably was indoctrinated from the beginning, and just, oh my God. And I hear your story, I'm like, this is probably just the same, if not worse, they go through, and probably not as worse. But I mean, how can you not feel for these people who are just lost? They're lost in multiple personalities, other, dimensions, whatever you want to call it. It's just so traumatic and so unfathomable that I can't imagine, that their celebrity status that they were promised or that they went through could be anything worth what they're gone through or going through.
Right. And I think a lot of the ones that came through their youth into either acting or music and grew up in the industry, this was started early on. There's no doubt about that. They had to. So I think there's a lack of awareness for a lot of these celebrities as well. And then the symptoms start to show up. And if you'll notice in several cases, Britney Spears, Eminem, Shia LaBeouf, they've done things publicly to express MKUltra and Monarch programming. And there's others who are actually in their music or in their presentation. In the case of Shia LaBeouf, he did a music with a band, but the presentation is definitely all about Monarch programming.
Yeah, who's
they're
that?
showing this. They're telling.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is you got to ask, why would the handlers allow that? And it's just another example of the cognitive dissonance of the audience that's watching, and their inability to understand that these people are crying out for help, and their handlers are allowing them to show things because it helps with the indoctrination and dissemination, and they know nobody's really gonna do anything. They're not gonna believe it. So yes, my heart breaks every time I see a breakdown, because especially the higher the public figure is, the less likely they'll ever get help. And if they're money makers, it isn't going to happen, and that's the case with most of these very high level stars. Is they're just banks for their controllers and handlers, and it's not a glamorous life that they're leading. I can assure people that.
Yeah, and it just kind of gives me an example of like social media, how everybody, like, you're following people who are posting every day how my life's great and all this stuff's going on, everything like that, and then you find out the true story is how miserable they are and how false of a life they're living.
Yes.
And I can only imagine the same thing with these celebrities, because you can't go through this ongoing program and torture. And one of the things I thought about when you were saying this was handlers allow them to express a little bit of awakening to this, because it allows them to go back. If they didn't have this like pressure release, they would just they would blow up, right? So it's a little valve pressure release, and no harm done, because the American and the public are just they're dumbed down about what's going on with this, because and I'll tell you why they're dumbed down about this, in my opinion, because no one could ever imagine insidiously torturing infants and children on an ongoing basis to create somebody that you can control. It's just so hard to because I believe we all have souls, and we're just naturally God-loving, beautiful entities, right? And it's just hard to fathom somebody else in that type of a situation would be the same way. So I can see how that is, but I'm so glad people like you waking up so people can look at this dark side and say, you know what? Guess what will happen if more people wake up to this? They're not going to be able to have these people in these key positions because people are going to be like, hey, and this is not cool. So what your take for why they put the the Kanye West, the Marilyn Monroes and all these other key people, they allegedly MKUltra or the trauma-based mind control, why do they put them in such key positions? What do you think the ultimate goal is? Why don't they just use them as their own slave and do things for them rather they have to put them in a public figure?
Well, in some cases, it's a moneymaker, like I said. And I mean, they're big moneymakers. They're not making the money. Their handlers and controllers are making via contracts and so forth. They're being used up, and also, in like politics and so forth, you're controlling decisions. You're the one making the decision for the politician. It's not the politician making the decision. Right. The ultimate Manchurian candidate. And then there are some, though, that, I know. The other thing I wanted to say was Michael H. Hoffman wrote a book years ago that is so poignant and so important for people to read. It's about the revelation of method. It's about secret societies. And we're in the time of revelation of method. They have for some time been showing us everything that they're doing. They're allowing everything to be shown, and it's kind of nobody's really going to do anything about it. Nobody's empowered enough to change it. So I've noticed, even in the 10 years I've been deprogramming, that it's the frequency and what's coming out, the amount of information is truly stunning. I mean, crossing not just the industry, the entertainment industry, but into politics, mainstream media. It's really stunning what is being revealed. And yet that cognitive dissonance has been very well nurtured into people. It has been driven into people for so long that it's simply knowing something is going on is not enough. That's the first step, but it's about moving through that into action. Yeah. And the one thing they don't care about, they don't care what you talk about. If it's not changing anything, that's fine. Right. It's when it starts to really change things, when it starts to have an effect. Right. So that's my opinion of, the three things: moneymakers, controlling decisions and policies, and of course we are in the era of revelation of method. Well, I do, and I think spiritual activism speaks to me more so, and how I define that real quick here before we go on break is leveling up, raising the vibration. So acknowledging what's going on with these actors, the Madonnas and the Pinks and whoever may be involved in this to whatever degree beyond their choice, right? Allegedly. I don't know why I guess right. So it is, to me, what's important is that the more we unite, more people wake up to this. Instead of like saying, okay, we're going to go down to the MGM and we're going to turn the building and flip it over, right? More so, it's putting the intention out there, the prayer out there, saying, you know what? We see you waking up to this. We see you rising up to love, using love, even amongst having all these handlers around you. And that's why I like a lot of the shows I done with Kevin Shipp and things like that. Maybe you and I can do at the end of this show, is we create an intention, we create a prayer so these people could wake up to that higher frequency, that energy of God. God is all there is, that unconditional love, as you call it, the living Christ energy, right? To wake up to that. And I think that intention, that doesn't seem like activism, but to me, there is power in thought and prayer. I mean, there's much more power in thought and prayer than anything else, because it is part of scalar energy. It happens instantaneous. Thought is instantaneous, right? So absolutely, you're absolutely right about that. So I think that alone could shift and make a difference. And I don't think these people even understand that. I mean, I could say that right now on air, on FM radio, and on all our different internet channels all around the world, and I still don't think
the handlers, these people who are so disconnected from God, will not understand what I'm saying and cannot meet me on that frequency. So, and if they did, they wouldn't be where they are. You know what I mean? They would be where we are. So, so I just think that's really the ultimate goal, and honestly, the whole fundamental understanding of United Intentions Foundation. You know, it's in the words itself.
Right.
So, but when we get back from break, let's talk about Lisa. Let's talk about the Disney child trap, and how a lot of these folks have no idea what they're doing when they send their kids off to these potential places. And Walt Disney, you know, what groups is he involved in? You know, and I think people will be very surprised. You know, sometimes you think these organizations are all like for that child, and you turn out it's just not what it says it is. So we'll be right back with Elisa E. She's author of Our Life Beyond MKULTRA, books 1 and 2. Go check it out at Our Life Beyond MKUltra at .wordpress.com. We'll be right back. Welcome to Awaken Atlanta. I am Tim Ray, your co-host with Shannon McVeigh.
Good morning, Awaken Atlanta. We are talking all about periods today. I love that we have a show on periods. I love that you got up so early for us. Thank you.
Girl, the last time I was up this early, I was going to bed. I think.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we have Kathy Kleiner, Ted Bundy survivor.
Raised his arm over his head and slammed it down on me.
Oh.
You are in a building, basically a studio, a soundstage, no different than what you're in now.
Chenlophilia means that you have a thing for turtles.
What?
Yeah.
Deborah Newell and Tara Newell, who are the real Dirty John victims.
Deborah, you're so brave to be able to share this. Not
Yes.
many people would share
Thank you.
that experience. What's the name of your book?
It's called The Wrong Kind of Women, Inside Our Revolution to Dismantle the Gods of Hollywood.
What does that mean?
It's up to you and Shannon and your other white brothers and sisters to educate one another when you seeing these injustices happen, when you see microaggressions occurring.
I think you're crazy. You can't get mad at me. I literally think you're nuts. He believes in aliens.
I had an encounter with gray aliens, and all of a sudden the whole house turns lavender, purplish color. And when I turned back around, 2 gray aliens were standing right in front of my face.
What?
You listen to our show, especially on our good news, and you think, wow, this is the opposite of what mainstream media is saying.
I know.
I mean, so who do you believe?
I want to do better for the black community. I think we need to do better.
And also, we're talking about the New World Order, what's going on with that, and is it effective right now that
Yes.
we're locked down?
I love that you're
Damn.
shaking your head right now at
Yeah.
Tim, because that's what's important here is there's a difference of opinions, guys. We've created a platform for you to speak your mind and your truth. Let's all come together united, right? United we stand with different opinions.
Awaken Atlanta is around the world right now. We're being watched all
We're
over
going to be
all over
Awaken
the world.
America. We're going to be Awaken the universe. We have big dreams, people.
The #1 conscious morning show in the world, Awaken Atlanta, guys, only on the UI Media Network. So stay tuned. Until next time, guys.
Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for waking up for us. And thank you for sharing your opinions. Mwah.
You know, we've had technical issues in the past. I don't know if it was our topic of the conversation today or if it was just, some fluke information or fluke situation we never seen before. And Elisa, have you had any experience with this type of stuff occurring at all in your past since you've been speaking?
Yeah, I have. I've had some really fascinating stuff with trying to do radio, and one of the first shows, Ground Zero, I did years ago. I have a friend who now works there as a producer, and it took 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes, to get me on. And they said, I had some friends listening in. Some of my support staff said that it was the first time ever. They're located up in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was the first time ever that during the time that I couldn't get on, they did a commercial thing, and they advertised for the town that I live in Utah. And it had never been advertised before. So it was like sending a message like, we're listening. We know where you are.
Yeah.
And but several radio shows have said, there's a first. This is something that hasn't happened before. And sometimes the producer will come on and explain what happened or what have you. So I think it's pretty common in this, not just with me, but with people who try to speak out about about this.
Well, it seems like they have a certain level of ownership. They feel like they own you in a way, I would assume, because they invested. If you look at it from an investment perspective, they invested their program as horrible and inhuman as it is since birth to now. And even now,
right.
They say even though you integrated yourself and you've integrated over 1,000 personalities and fragments, you know how hard that is to go through a lifetime. And them still to be there on the outside, waiting for a mishap, waiting for an opportunity to shut her up, or waiting for this. It's just, boy, you guys and gals are just disconnected from God, are you not? I mean, how can that be like that? But it's amazing that you could have this experience in other places. And I think when people,
well, it's Tim, it's in part, it's a psychological operation, and I remember early on, I would be terrified.
Yeah.
I was absolutely terrified when I first started doing radio, and I was terrified. My full name was going to come out. I was terrified my location was going to come out.
Right.
And when I did that show, I didn't tell anybody where I was living. I do now, it doesn't matter. But, they advertised it because they knew that I was terrified of that they knew where I was and what I was doing. So for a significant period of time in deep programming, I was very scared. I didn't have that sense of connection, the conscious connection that I have now to the living Christ. And it doesn't matter to me what they do. It doesn't bring fear up in me. It doesn't hardly even bring up frustration anymore. I just make note of it and take notice of it. But that was a shift in who I am. And I think that has to happen, for each survivor. And then you're just doing your work, and it doesn't matter, what comes up.
Yeah, well, I mean,
what are they going to do? What are they going to do to me? They're going to torture me? Are they going to kill me? They've done both of those things.
Yeah. It's like, it's like, what else you got? What else you got? What else you got? Right? Yeah. No, I get it.
What else you got?
That's all you got, chump, But no, listen, I understand, and I do feel the protection of God and Christ, whatever energy you want to say, and I know that is to be my truth and my reality, and I also know that I don't even have to sit here in a circle and surround ourselves with our archangels or our angels or our counselor or people who truly understand, because we're already surrounded by these loving entities,
right?
And they protect us as long as we understand. I think when everybody understands that, and no matter how much, like I love talking to Thomas Campbell. He's this physicist who wrote the book My Big Toe, and he does a lot of out of body experiences too. And we talk about playing in this outside realm of life, right? And he says, Tim, when you do get into these out of body experiences and you're traveling in the, what do they call that? The astral plane, right? And all that stuff. The fear is going to come up, and fear is usually going to attract other fearful things. And you could attract entities, you could attract situations. But he says the only way to get through fear, whatever you're in that process, because once you get into that fear, you're going to pop right back into your body again, right? So the only way to get, only antidote to fear is courage. And so in the midst of that fear, in the midst of the intimidation that these people, these CIA operatives, these alien-based entities and energies that, by the way, I have an exorcist now, and he came on my show yesterday, so, you mess with me, you messing with him, all right? He can get rid of you guys pretty quickly. I like that. but my point is, courage is so critical now in this time, in this paradigm shifting time. You can't stick your head in the sand. You got to look at everybody else's back, and the more we are united, my goodness, we can just change this world overnight if we stay united and stay in our courage, whatever that may be. And as you know, Elisa, there's no death. There's no death. It's just energy is just transferred. And you know what? Like you said, what are they going to do? Send me to another life so come back even more powerful like Obi-Wan Kenobi, man? Bring it on. Bring it on. All right. So let's get back to what we're talking about that they didn't want us to talk about, all right? And allegedly. All right. So, so this Disney trap. And if this sound comes on again after we talk about Disney and Walt Disney, he must have a lot of pull in their little circles, doesn't he? So, what do you know about Walt Disney?
Well, I don't know what Walt Disney himself was all about. There's a lot of conflicting ideas about where this really started to go awry. And, it became a huge corporation at some point.
The Desmarais, is it?
Desmarais?
Desmarais, I think.
Yeah, and I believe definitely at that point it became, a venue for mind control. And it's not even just the Mickey Mouse Club or Disneyland or Disney World, which Disney World was a part of reinforcing, at the very least, reinforcing some of my programming. We used to go there twice a year for extended period of time. And but there's the movies that are put out. They seem, really stop and take a look at some of these animated films that Disney's putting out. They are some of the most violent. Their messages, there's things that have been found in the animated film itself that the word sex was seen in the clouds in one film. There's a film, The Jungle Book, that was done by Disney years ago. Very sexual for me.
Yeah,
and it was used on me as a kid, for reinforcing that sexual programming. So there's definitely something going on there. And a lot of these stars that we were talking about, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, I don't know who all to name actually, but they came through the Mickey Mouse Club. So they started out, in my opinion, as children in some type of MKUltra programming.
Do you think a lot of these folks who go right into the Mickey Mouse Club or the Disney experience, I call it the Disney Child Trap experience, do you think they're coming from bloodlines? Like you can only go through this real true beginning to the end programming if you're a part of the bloodline and more likely to be susceptible to mind control? Or you think there's, it's just a draw of the luck? They have to do their work ahead of time.
I don't know. I really don't know. That may very well be the reason behind it. You have to look at the people that have come through. It's kind of hard to track by a name. It's hard to track some of the bloodline names, but generally speaking, and this is not always the case, you're going to find more of the blue-eyed blonde, green-eyed redhead that has a lot of the bloodline qualities in it. It doesn't mean that if someone has brown eyes and darker skin or black hair that they're not able to be programmed. But in a very general sense, that's kind of how that runs through the bloodline. So.
Wow, that's fascinating.
But there's also, let me just add, there's also a very strong Native American content. Like, for example, one of the things that they really, really love is to have the Celtic crossed with the Native American. That seems to be very common in a lot of survivors.
Why do you think that? What's your instinct on that?
I think that starts moving into the esoteric side. What the history is for those bloodlines. Maybe the spiritual aspect, the propensity for abilities or connection to spirit. And I want to bring that in because of what you said a little while ago. To me, it isn't that this these elite brotherhoods that are running these programs and passing them down through generations and their families don't believe in God. It's that they've chosen a different God. And they, in my opinion, understand very well the power of what I call the living Christ. And their whole purpose is to maintain a status quo here, both individually and in mass, where that isn't allowed to gain more favor and power over what they're ritualistically and esoterically and magically, with a K, continuing to bring into this realm and support in this realm. They have to keep this going.
Yeah.
It's not like they did something and now it's here. They continue because they understand sigils and twilight language, and that's to me what this overabundance in Hollywood and the music industry, it's like it's being shoved in everyone's faces in every music video and every performance. And there's a reason, because the words and the symbols have incredible power. They're magical with a K,
right?
And they're producing spells. And when the thing that they've done is they've taken away from the masses their understanding of what words and magic and sigil and what my one friend calls twilight language. I mean, these guys and these men and women are extremely well versed. They're magicians of sort.
Yeah.
They're casting spells and performing rituals to maintain what is at work here. So to me, they very much understand the power of the Christ that I call the living Christ, the power of God, the true God. But it's their job to continually keep the other forces abundant and functioning and in control here.
Interesting. So interesting what you just said, Elisa E, and I think you're right on, because as I look out, and I have a much broader perspective on God as an energy, more so than a personified demigod that perhaps has influenced our history, right? Or demigods. But at the same time, I try not to define it. I just know that I have it in me, and I know what it is to me, right? But at the same time, I think people have to realize that when you move forward with understanding what that God is to you, and that these people, like you said, they know the power of intention. They know that you could use the out-of-body experiences for darkness or for good. They know, but they want to use darkness, but they don't want you to know that it's good. And then when I see all these shows, and they're so heavy on Christians, I mean, they're taking Christianity out of schools. They're trying to make things. I mean, Christianity's you can make fun of. You can't make fun of any other religion other than Christianity. And I'm not even saying I'm this Baptist or Lutheran or practicing Christian there, but I have like that more of a belief system like you have. But it's still. They're like this. A new show just came on television. They're joking about Christianity. This guy has like this Jesus key, because it's a Kegis, it's just they're kind of mocking it, right? And and truth comes in four stages, right? And first it's ignored, then it's made fun of, right? And I think they're still in the kind of fluctuation of making fun of, and then it's strongly opposed, which I think they're in that area now too. So for all you people who feel hopeless out there or don't have the courage to step up and get into this this awakening process, no, we're almost there to acceptance. We're on our way. So you got to stay strong, you got to stay united, and you got to stay in touch with God in your day-to-day intentions and as you live your life. So I think there's something there you just talked about is very big, and we're going to be closing out an FM radio at this point in a couple of minutes. But you don't mind if I keep you over again, and because we have some time
Sure.
we have some time to make up. And what I want to do, Wahid, is of course keep Spreaker going, also keep Facebook going, since we kind of lost 20 or so minutes with them, or 10 minutes, whatever it was, as we were trying to figure out the what happened to the studio.
We got descrambled.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it only makes the show better. I mean, it's kind of stupid, But anyway, hey, that's just my 2 cents. All right, so WDJY listeners, if you want to continue this conversation with the MKUltra Elisa E survivor, go to Spreaker.com or go to our Facebook. Go to Facebook / United Intentions Foundation. You can watch us there, as well as Spreaker.com / United Intentions Foundation. Or go to our Patreon page too, which is patreon.com / United Radio Network. So with that, as they fall off, check it out, because this you're going to hear a story I guess they don't want you to know. So as we move forward and proceed, let's continue with the Disney experience, because I think a lot of people, as you look at who's some of the latest ones here. Jesse was sending to me that potentially, allegedly, could be mind controlled. But you talked about a couple of indicators. What's your recommendation for these celebrities who are like knee deep into handlers? Are part of them sold out for the celebrity and they're caught into the addiction of the attention and admiration? Or are they even aware of that, because there's usually probably multiple personalities going on? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's probably several of those cases, differing from person to person. The ones that are, mind controlled from children, I don't think they had much choice. And I don't know, like you said, the power of the spirit, the soul is really strong. And anyone can, at any point, become aware and attempt to do something about that. My suspicion is that these really high-level celebrities that are real banks, I mean, they're making billions for people. They've probably got such an entourage of controllers and handlers. I doubt there's, any real moment of the day that they're allowed to think for themselves or have a moment of awareness or waking up. I'm sure they're reinforced constantly in several different ways. So, but again, the spirit can do what it can do, and it can do it at any time. So there's always hope for any person out there. And I think the first step is something relating to the spirit has to happen for the person, because the physical getting out is, that's the rest of your life. And there can be a lot of things thrown in the way, but I think it's all about something on the inside that has to start exerting itself.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. But don't you think just a kind of evoking or asking for help
Absolutely.
from that higher power?
Sincerely and consistently, like you said, prayer. I mean, that was a big part of the early days. I was terrified, and even after I had met, the men I had met that helped me begin what I call deep deprogramming, even though I had been aware of so many things for probably a dozen years, I was encouraged to just keep asking for help, calling on that spirit and asking for help, even when I really didn't know what that was going to be or how that was going to come to pass. So yeah, absolutely. Asking for help is very important.
Right. Well, I mean, it's fantastic. You think about it, when people at any given time, no matter how horrible, and I think a lot of it has to do with their mindset of, they feel like they signed a contract with the devil and they have to be obligated to this contract. And to me, I was talking to Kevin Shipp on air we were talking about satanic pedophilia and how, do you have to honor any contract with the devil? I mean, they don't honor anything, Why would you feel obligated to honor that, right? And I think what trumps that is asking for God's, help. I mean, and there's the ultimate God.
Now that you brought that up, there is something I did, and I know several people who have, but let me kind of preface it a little bit. It's kind of difficult to explain, but people who are under this, including myself, you don't really think like other people do. And there are things that are literally sometimes blocked from your thought process. So, I know that a lot of us struggle with, there's something on the tip of my tongue, but for me and a lot of other MK Ultras that I've talked to, it's like stuff is just out of our reach, and we know it's there, but we couldn't reach out to it. We know there's something we need to do or something we need to say. And in that process, it took me actually longer than it probably should have. Because of that reason, I began revoking on my own any oaths, contracts, binds, commitments, promises, all of them. And every word I could think of, any new word that came in, I would add it to the list. And I didn't just do that once. I had to do it over and over and over again. And interestingly, early on when I was doing this, it's almost as if there was a struggle to speak those words, and there was a desire coming from various parts of me not to do this, and not as if I was going to break a commitment that I longed for. And so I know how that must sound to people who aren't in this, but it literally was like I was going through withdrawal.
Wow.
By doing this.
Right.
So there's that aspect to this. It's not as simple as, Miley Cyrus realizing what she is.
Right.
There's a whole other aspect to this that will be such an incredible struggle within. And it doesn't just happen for a short time. It will come and go and stay with you for a long time. So there's that. But yes, revoking binds, oaths, contracts, and there is an esoteric principle to the contracts. These people that are signing contracts with these large industries and corporations, there is an esoteric side, not just a legal side, that is you're giving consent, you're acquiescing to whatever that corporation or institution is really, or industry is really about, who's running it, what the energy there is, and that will start playing a role.
And a lot of these groups, you know, from the Bohemian Groves to the Masons to the whatever the Demore or whatever they call that Disney was involved in. Demole, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you know, there is this contract that supposedly they do, like you're saying, but how can free will, if we are free will being, God-loving human beings, how can free will ever be compromised other than maybe disguised or, you know, hidden or not shown the true understanding of what our free will is? So if you have free will, it's not conditional. You have free will to do anything you want at any given time, anytime you want. In my opinion. I mean, how do you foresee that?
Well, I've been asked this question once before, and I believe, and I have to say it's a belief based on my experiences and some others, that there are aspects to serious, sincere, deep mind control programming, whether it be trauma-based or otherwise, that can sort of capture or subdue or oppress certain divine energies through manipulation, smoke and mirrors, deception. So if you're not, and I base this on a lot of my own experience, I believe that something happened to my free will. Something over the course of whatever, all that was done, something occurred to that, something happened to my spirit, something happened to my soul. And when you understand what people are made to do as children and grow up being made to do, for example, taking a life, there's very few high-level MKs that haven't been either forced to do it or made to believe they did do it.
Right.
Okay. And for kill programming, it's absolutely necessary over and over and over again.
Right.
So that has repercussions in the spiritual soul, esoteric realm of what happens there. And I'm not qualified to explain it, but I do believe there is a consequence to that, and that they know this. It's why they do it. That's why they do it to so many people. So I believe, as far as free will goes, that based on my own experience and what others have shared with me, that something happens to the ability to choose for at least in a period of time while this trauma and torture and programming is put in and maintained. And as long as those entities are present, again, to me, real deep level, high level programming, there's always entities present. They're there to handle that situation and keep it from rising up.
Right.
It doesn't mean that your spirit isn't going to try or you're not going to have a moment of clarity, but there's a lot put in place to quash that.
Yeah, I get the sense, Elisa, that it's almost like they're so, especially on the entity level, they're just such masters at it. They really are good at hiding the fact that you have free will, not eliminating it, but disguising it, hiding it, misinterpreting it, disinformation about it, and just kind of fooling people that they don't have free will.
Yeah, and constantly interfering with it. Constantly, if it rises up, doing something that shuts it down for however long until it rises up again. And I think that's pretty common in MKUltra survivors, that, it's not like they've been completely oblivious their entire life.
Right.
They've had moments, and but somebody's always there to make sure it doesn't grow.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating, and it's amazing when you kind of come into that life and people see that happening, what their skill set they're able to do, or not skill set, but what they could rise up in that energy when you're tapped into that higher self, that energy source, that God source, that, as you call it, living Christ energy source. You're really, it's unlimited what you can do, but you gotta allow yourself to be tapped into it. You gotta want to be tapped into it, and you gotta embrace it and bring it in. And that's when I think all the protection comes around you immediately. I mean, you got a whole army of people around you that you can't, you can imagine this. And this is what I loved about our show the other day. When was that? We do the Exorcist show with John and Henderson.
That was yesterday.
And I love the fact that, he calls on, I can't remember this one person he said, but he said his 4 other archangels, and they're from Michael to Ariel to whatever. And he says he helped they come in, and he sees and he knows that they help get rid of these entities that are attached to them, whatever it may be, whether demonic or they're, Grandma showed up to try to help out a little bit. Grandma, you're gonna need to go to the light, right?
Oh, and I said, Grandma, help this computer. Is that what you're saying?
But so it's. I think you have to realize that through your intention and just through a knowing that you are surrounded by the most powerful energy in the universe, that nothing could touch it, and their skill sets, these demigods' skill sets, to hide that from us has been very effective over a period of time. But personally, I think the gig's up. I think people are waking up to this and moving forward, and they're not falling in place with the belief system and the politics, the division of that. That's one thing we talked about yesterday was you can't really, they don't want you talking about politics or beliefs or religion because you're messing with the belief system, keeps everybody into the matrix, and they don't want you unplugging anybody out of the matrix. But that's just, I think it's deteriorating and it's falling apart just from my perspective. What's your take on that?
I'm still waiting. I'm still mixed. I'm taking notice of all the, all that's coming out, what seems to be happening at this point. And there's a part of me that's extremely hopeful for this, really wanting to believe that what I'm seeing, not directly, but behind the scene of some activities that are in the political arena and so forth, that there might be something at work behind that. So I'm very hopeful, but I have to say I'm naturally, based on my history, I'm a bit of a skeptic.
Yeah.
So I'm still waiting to see how this continues to unfold. But there are some things that are happening, not real high-levelly public. They're kind of like, there's the front story, and then there's some people providing information on some possible backstory. And so spiritually, I don't believe the etheric Christ is anywhere but here.
Right.
That etheric Christ energy is here. It is happening. This is going on, but I also have the eyesight of the other side as well. So I can see things that are on the, I don't know how to really say this. I don't want to really say
on the rise.
Because,
on the rise, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like the dark forces are also progressing in certain aspects of their agenda.
Yeah.
But I see other things that give me hope that something might be shifting. Here.
Elisa, listen, I can't. I say this over and over again, almost on all different shows and different venues and contexts. But when people have to use their power, when they lose their power, okay. So the fact that you can see this going on and it's becoming more obvious to people, because more people who are in the know and awake are seeing it too, as well as what you're saying, without getting into details. But this advancement in their program, in their mind control program, and whatever you want to call it, is an example of desperation. It's an example of trying to hold something that it's like holding water in your hand and it's going to fall through your fingers. People, I know you've seen both sides, the good and the dark, and you've seen how powerful the dark is, and now you're in this beginning mode of realizing the ultimate power, of light, right, and your higher self and of God. So I'm telling you, I just sense it. I just know it. I can't show you proof of it, but I'm just telling you, when people have to manipulate and to keep people further connected into the matrix and in the blind, they're losing their stand. And rather than just going with the evolution, going with the shift, they're fighting it, and it's only going to bring more light, recognizing darkness, more darkness being seen by the light. And this gray world we're going to be developing as we go forward, because it's all part of us. And I do think the answer does lie within ourselves, connecting to that source, as well as understanding that, the compassion's for everyone. Like I was talking to Billy Carson, and this guy's doing incredible stuff out there. He started his own
Forbidden Knowledge.
Forbidden Knowledge. Yeah, he started his his own space academy. Benevolent space academy, right? And he's seeing that too. He's like, the compassion for these dark entities, and I know it's hard even from your perspective even to say that, and I may be naive, whatever you want to say, but they're lost. They're in fear. They're scared. Half of them are all mind controlled themselves, generation to generation. They're running scared. They don't know what's going on. They're psychopathic, sociopathic in many ways, still dealing with multiple personalities, not integrating them. They don't have that light of Christ, right? That God love realizing in their lives. So they're disconnected. And to me, it's not that I even feel sorry for them. I just like, my God, what a life to live, not connected to that, not knowing that. Where's the compassion for this? And I do have compassion. I hope whatever journey they're on, we're on our own journey. Whatever journey they're on, I hope they do rise up and embrace that and help not only mankind but their own kind. But that's just maybe a wishful advanced thinking. But to me, I see that being the ultimate end game. I don't. What are we going to do? Mass murder everybody that we don't agree with, or doing stupid, horrible things. It just doesn't seem to be the right end game. But anyway,
violence is never the answer.
Well, it's tough, especially when you see this happening to little children. You kind of lose your kind of sanity, to a certain degree. But I don't know. So can you see that, or you think I'm being a little naive?
No, not at all. I not on your naivete. No, not at all. I actually know a lot of people that feel the way you do. Okay, it's not uncommon right now. And over the last 6 months to a year, a lot of people I know do believe that something is changing. And they clearly, in a more materialistic, physical realm, they clearly have taken out the Bush-Clinton cabal, as we talked about before.
Right.
So out with the old. But I'm not convinced yet. Is it really changing on a consciousness level, and is that filtering into the physical, the material world? I'm not sure yet. That's all I'm saying. I really am hopeful, and I don't think anyone's naive by sharing what you just shared. I think it's a beautiful and positive way to see it, and I think it's very likely that something is shifting.
Right.
I'm really hard to convince on this issue.
I love it, man. I love it.
Forgive me, but I'm just one of those people that I'm, with what I've seen and what I still see, I'm one of the last ones to jump on that boat. But it doesn't mean that in my heart and in the quiet, while I'm looking at things, that I'm not going, could it be?
Sure.
Could it really be?
Sure.
And I feel my heart jump. I do want it that way.
Well, in reference to, like you said, the change in politics here, I do see like the present administration be more of a kind of a, you got the dangerous entity, you got the entity, heavy entity, and then you have this now light entity. And I think the fact that they had to go light, I think they realize, in my opinion, I think they realize that, wow, this is a little too much. People are not going to process this yet. We're not ready for this yet. We're not ready for, the people, eating children and being okay with it. Right. So we need to put a light version in here. Let's get back to like the old mind control. But the fact that they got to go light right now, to me, is the ultimate win. They're realizing that this growth and awakening of spirituality is exponentially growing across the board, that they had to shift their whole program. They couldn't go just right to the end game there.
There's another possibility. There's another possibility, and I'm not saying this is what's happening.
Right.
And this is not coming from me. This is coming from other sources.
Okay.
That there actually is a possibility, and had been long in the working, that this... I'm not crazy about any president, okay? I haven't been, I think that, like we've talked about, the last one that was going to really do something was Kennedy. Yeah. But what I will say about this administration and what seems to be happening, and again, some of this is coming from behind the scenes. It's very obscured and it's hard to find this information, but that there might be forces might is the key word, be forces within military and intelligence that are backing this coup, which is to take back what has been 30 plus years being run by the Bush Clinton cabal. And I'm not saying they're at the top of it. They're just, in this country, they were kind of the overseers, the caretakers. They've been pushed out. They're being destroyed. And so I don't know if this is just making space for the new, younger, technologically minded elite that are going to take over, or if this is really, because I do know there have been for decades people in the intelligence and military community and government that know what's going on regarding mind control and the transhumanist movement. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. And they don't like it. But there's no way to go through the systems like the Department of Justice or, through government and passing bills. Those systems have been closed to people who are against the elite cabal. They have been closed for decades. So there's another, what I'm saying is, if there was a move like this, this is how it would probably look. I'm not saying it is happening. I'm saying if they were going to do it, they couldn't use the normal legal channels. They would have to have someone in place to allow that process, to allow those decisions to be made behind the scenes and let that person just be kind of the shell, the front person. This is how it would look. So that's my hope, but I don't know if that's true.
Well, that I think it makes complete sense, and I hope you're right in that level too. And like you, I'm a skeptic as well. Although I may see an end game from a perspective or belief system that I would hope I'd want to create and manifest in this world. But you got to look at what's going on. When I didn't see the chemtrails disappearing, I didn't see the glyphosate being marched out. I didn't see the vaccine slowing down. To me, then, arguing about who's, the tax breaks or whatever, it's just so silly. I was on a panel at Conscious Life Expo, and we had a couple of people on there. I'm not going to mention the panelists, but one guy kept saying about, no, we have an opportunity now to change the legislature, get all 400 legislators out of the House of Representatives, put all these, liberal Democrats back in, and we'll change everything for them. I'm like, God, we've been doing this for decades now, back and forth. Like, don't we get it? The answer is not going to be a political solution to our world. It's going to be a spiritual solution. And so I don't know what that exactly looks like, but I do know this. If everyone claimed back their own power, they became aware of their own consciousness and claimed back their own power of intention, own power of higher self, of God, whatever you want to call it, truly claim that back to themselves and had this second coming of awakening of this, right? That would be the next political environment we'd have to go into if even politics would even be important at that point, because everyone's going to do the right thing. Everyone's going to want to do what's loving. They're going to want to create this heaven on earth. I mean, that to me, when I start seeing that happening, which I are seeing happening in many different small pockets, but not on a governmental political level, unless this is the precursor of it. I don't know. But, my indicator is when chemtrails disappear and we're not terraforming the earth anymore, then maybe we're making headway, because it's not humans terraforming the earth. I'll tell you that. They're not the ones behind this movement here. It's,
there's a journalist out there. Her name is Lynn Cochran, and I'm not. This is this is the part that may be happening, may not. But there seems to be some backroom information that the administration or whoever's behind this administration, that's what I would really say, is finding a way to go after the child rapists. Is finding a way to go after these long, rampant, decades-long pedophiles. And they're doing it in a subversive way. Now, I can't claim this is actually happening. This is what's being brought forward. It's in the early stages. There are signs, and she's a respected journalist. She's done some amazing work, but of course, you're not going to see her on CNN or Fox or, talking about this. But if this is true, I mean, one of the first things that has to happen is we have got to do something for these children. They're still going day in, day out. They're being taken out. They're being killed. They're being raped. This is why it's hard for me to be, really seeing a consciousness shift.
Sure.
It hasn't slowed down.
Sure.
It's just business is going on as usual.
Yeah,
so anyone that steps up and does something to save those children, to me, I don't care what kind of person they are. I don't care what their personal preferences are, anything. But that if that's happening, that gives me tremendous hope, because that is not changing.
Yeah. That's a great indicator. I didn't even think about that, but that's probably the ultimate indicator, more so than chemtrails, is the children sacrifice, and the children sacrifice of not just like you said, children being kidnapped and sex trafficking, but I mean the kids being to altars and killed, being born without being accounted for, unaccounted for births, and never making it past infancy, or being brought up to be a breeder. I mean, there's just so many levels, and when you get it down to this darkness of what happens to these children, it's almost unfathomable. But it's an industry in itself, in many facets, and until that, you're right, Elisa.
Because that's at the core. That's at the core of our society, and people don't know it.
Yeah.
And think about what's happening energetically. And this is what I was referring to in the magic and the spells and the rituals. The esoteric side of this in the darkness has to be addressed, because what we're doing above that can only go so far if that activity continues at the pace at which it's continuing.
Right. Well, don't you?
If that makes sense.
It does, but don't you think they're amping up this pace because they're losing control, because they feel like they have to?
That may very well be.
They got to do these rituals.
Well be.
They got to do more horrific rituals, more horrific things to really get this energy flowing, or this dark energy flowing. Which tells me again they're already losing, because now they got. You can use your power, you lose your power. So it's almost like we're at the end sprint. We're at the sprint now, and now it's a sprint. And so who's going to win out? And it's scary and exciting, as we talked about before.
It is.
And I can't just say it comes from good and the duality of it, good and evil, because I believe we all have good and evil in us. I truly believe the end game is going to be the awakening of this good and evil in ourselves, and we choose light over darkness, and hence we create the heaven, on earth. I'm hoping that's the ultimate game here, but I mean, who knows? I mean, it's exciting to think about. At the same time, when you see the real suffering, and suffering, I guess, from a three-dimensional perspective, if you realize there's no death and there's, everything's Leela, then, maybe it's a different experience. But when you're here in this reality, which we choose to be in this reality, pain's pain, or at least interpretation of pain is pain, and somebody's suffering, they don't want to be that way. There's a natural indication of a human being to want to alleviate pain in other people if you're connected to source, so.
Yes.
Elisa, any last words you want to give advice on people who step up into their courage to share this information now more so than ever before we close out the show?
Well, I think you really covered it, Tim. I think the energy that comes from the united, those in union, there's more power. There's more power there. Just the individual going inside and asking for help. The sincere desire to change your life, to find out what's out there, like I had to. I didn't know that. Consciously, I did not know that power. That power was with me all the time, but I consciously did not know it until I started asking and repeated asking. And that's available to all of us. Nobody's left outside that. No matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, it's not taken away from us.
Well, you just heard it from Elisa E. She's a high-level MKUltra survivor. She's the author of Our Life Beyond MKUltra, and you can catch that. You can buy that at ourlifebeyondmkultra.wordpress.com. There's books 1 and 2. Definitely check it out. Buy it now before our next show in a few weeks. And please make sure that you get yourself updated. Get yourself updated, leveling up. It's all about leveling up. Be where you are. You got to know where you are, so then you can know to level up. Otherwise, you're going to stay where you are, right? So, Elisa, it's been wonderful again. I tell you, I just enjoy talking to you more than most people in the world right now. So, I don't know what that means,
that's
but
kind, Tim. Thank you. Yeah, that's so sweet of you to say. Well, I sure appreciate the venue, and thank you, Tim, and thank you everybody there, Jesse and LaShawn and everybody I've interacted with and haven't interacted with for doing what you guys do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Until next time. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. We have a lot coming up next week.
Thank you for watching Frequency Wars, brought to you by the UI Media Network at uimedianetwork.org, the home of innovative, uncensored, conscious media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at UI Media Network. And be sure to sign up free at uimedianetwork.org to watch all of our uncensored content. See you next time on Frequency Wars, the next revolution. The UI Media Network and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.